everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Human Design Advantage. Today, we have episode 7 where we're going to be talking about the mental awareness and the Great Awakening. Today, or blah, 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 I got tongue-tied. We will meet the human duality. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to say welcome. Hello, Danny. How are you?
Hey, Jen. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
We're making a habit of this.
I know, and it's so awesome that we are. And on that note, for you guys who are following us, and I'm definitely paying attention. We're getting some likes, we're getting some shares, and we are definitely getting some views. So we need you to go the extra step for us and help us get this show out. So please make sure that you share, tag a friend. If you're viewing this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on an episode. We do have a couple of announcements before we jump into today's show, right, since it's on my mind before I forget. Please, we have backstage passes today. We have 4 special ladies that are going to be joining us to ask questions so that you can get your questions answered live on our show. So if that interests you, please make sure to send us a DM, sign up to our newsletter. You'll be able to find the link in the bio wherever you are viewing this. And we've got a couple of exciting things headed your way. So please make sure that you're staying in tune with what's going on with this show.
And can I go further from there just a moment?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like Roman from the Epoch Times always says, and smash that like button, LOL.
Yes.
Yeah, smash it or whatever. That's what everyone says. I'm just copying them. But guys, do understand, we're going to pour this stuff out and we're going to keep going on week after week after week. We'll have years and years of stuff in under our belt over time. And guess what? It's all free. We're giving this stuff away. We're making sure you have it. Human design has no business being truly hoarded. One day we may monetize things and do stuff so we can make a living. But for right now, we're putting this stuff out because of our love of humanity. I mean, it's just that simple. You're going to get the very best of everything. And you're just going to get it. We're giving it, okay? Because that's how it's supposed to go, period.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you said that because it is important for you guys to understand that. We are trying to monetize this show as much as possible. So your likes, subscribes, your shares, hitting that button helps us fund this mission on what we are doing. It is imperative that everybody understand what their human design is so that we can start to impact the our whole tribe, our whole community,
the whole human tribe,
the whole collective, so that we can start to make a change. Because if you're waking up and seeing how our world is, it's a kind of a chaotic place at the moment, and that's why we are really going to be pumping out this information. Coming in April, you're going to be seeing our happy faces not only once a week but twice a week as well. So
yep.
All right, Danny, do you want to give us a update on last week's episode, kind of catch people up, and then we're going to dive into today's.
Let's do this. So last week we've been on the streams of awareness for a while because this is what's really been, this is what plagues us. We have all this awareness and then we're not quite sure of anything. So this week we're going to finish up with the mental streams of awareness. And these are all pressures, the pressures of awareness. Last week and the week before, we did the emotional and the splenic streams of awareness, how suddenly, intuitively, in the moment, you know something. That's the spleen. It's cool. It's logical. It has intuition and instincts. It's got tribal and collective definition. The week before, we did the same with the emotional. Oh, this emotional turbulence that we have. People get so emotional so fast, they don't know what's happening to them. For half of the planet, it's not even them. And we're going into that. And now we're going to get to how to see this dang passenger. And a lot of it is tied up in this mental awareness. We think we know stuff. And we forget to witness ourselves, watching ourselves do something that we didn't even know why we did that. A lot of this gets caught up in this mental awareness and it brings us away from our nature. So we're going to get into what's our nature. Bam.
Yes. And we're gonna touch on how this is applying to the Great Awakening as well, and why it's important, and everything like that. So, with that said, you want to go ahead and dive into today's show?
Absolutely. Can you pull up the very first slide?
Absolutely. Let me go ahead and
That was it.
Yep, share my screen.
Yeah.
There we go.
And Jen, I made sure to put these in order, so they should just move right along. So last week we did the spleen, which is the green center on the left, lower left. That's the spleen. The green center up top is the ajna. Right there. Yeah, that's where mental conceptualization takes place. And that's an awareness. It's literally a human awareness. The rest of the animal kingdom doesn't have this. And then on the far right is the emotional awareness. This is what's waking up in humanity, causing all the turbulence. We are evolving. This is actually waking up in us as we speak. So in order of strongest to weakest, the emotional streams of awareness are the strongest and most profound. They literally just tug us along on a riptide that we're not aware of, and so we're always getting mad at the other guy and going to war. The mental is the next that we're not aware of.
Sorry, Dean.
That's all right. And the next one is going backwards again, is this ajna, the triangle pointing down at the top. That ajna is very powerful. We currently think that that's what we think. This is where we conceptualize. This is where we have ideas, come up with opinions, where sudden knowing takes place, and it gets vocalized out the throat. And it's so powerful, it takes over the weakest awareness we have, which is also, in a way, the strongest, the spleen on the far left. That spleen is so soft, it speaks once, it tells you, no, dummy, turn left, not right. And we don't listen to it all the time. Anyone with splenic awareness is aware that they have the saying, I knew it, I should have done this, I knew it, I should have done that. And even if you don't have it defined in your body graph, it doesn't mean you don't live in the field of splenic awareness. It's our oldest mammalian awareness. We share this with reptiles. We share this with, an insect has a spleen. It's a survival awareness. It helps us survive. Duck, hide, run, jump, whatever it is. And now that we are mental creatures, we started thinking and we stopped listening to it because we have all these concepts. I don't have to worry about go left or go right. I have a mental concept. I'll shoot it. I'll starve it out. I'll think of something. Here's a good one. I'm in trouble at home. I'll bring roses. That's a concept. That was an idea that came out of your mind. And when you go to buy roses next time because you figure you need to bring them home to your sweetie, I'm talking to the guys out there, go ahead and realize as you're paying for it, it's your form that's doing the paying. It was not your mental ajna's idea to actually pay for that thing. That was your form that came up with it as a chemistry. And I'm going to try and get you over the course of these next couple of shows to witness that you are a passenger. You're a passenger in this vehicle, witnessing how your form, the body, this thing we walk around in, the package, how it is making the decision for you. Say it again, Jen.
I call it my spacesuit. I was actually thinking about that this morning because I'm paying attention to the awareness.
Oh, and you had quite a moment. Do you care to share that moment so we can start to strike this distinction between the bodies informing us and the mind's the mind is only here to help, not here to be in charge and make the decisions. It's only here to help.
Which moment? The moment I was telling you about yesterday with the
anger?
Okay.
You feel like sharing?
Yeah, I can share that. So I'm a manifester, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, saying the correct themes or terminology, keynotes. My not self theme is anger.
Yep.
So I have realized this throughout my life that I've done a lot of where I play a part in all of this is I am a life coach. So I do a lot of shadow work and stuff like that. So anger is something that I haven't really experienced to the point that I did recently. And I honored it, that when it came up, I recognized, like, I took a step back and I was able to watch myself. It,
Nice.
like, what was happening. And I could channel the energy a lot better. And I realized that as being a manifester, that for a long time, even on the journey to self-healing, I thought that, when anger came up, I was constantly diving into it, like, what is triggering me and why can't, trying to pull it out by the root, because that's what I do. But in this moment, because I'm learning my human design a lot better, I was able to step back and not overanalyze why I was being angry, but honor that energy as well and channel it into, like, a very productive way for me. And when I did it, I also informed, which I'm supposed to do. So that energy was able to flow in a more constructive and positive way that benefited me and those around me, instead of it being channeled like when I was younger, where I did eventually have to go to anger management classes, because even listening to one of Raw's recordings this morning, he talked about the manifester and how they would break stuff, and that would be me, where I don't act that way. I don't have those emotional outbursts like that anymore, but I was able to recognize it in the moment. So
Exactly. And so as a type, when a manifestor gets angry and they suddenly witness it, they're witnessing two things. One, their pathway to creativity, because as soon as you're angry, it's like, okay, well, that thing I'm angry at, that's not good. Let me go do something else. Manifestor, you're here to initiate. You just go do. And at first, if you're first witnessing this, then you'll witness that it's not necessarily the easiest thing, but still go do something else. And suddenly you'll realize that initiating energy, that is your manifestor self, is suddenly doing something really cool. That anger prompts creativity as soon as you see it. The second important thing for you, Jen, was that you saw it. You saw it. You saw it. So suddenly you made a decision based on your chemistry that you could witness. Do you remember? Yes. Do you remember a moment whereby you were like, I appear to be myself watching my body give me a chemistry. We're separate. Did you know?
Yeah, it was really an empowering moment. The whole experience, even from the start of it to the end of it. And it was the path of least resistance.
Right. And you found peace, did you not?
Quickly.
And it's a lot better than
it was
anger.
Creative and productive.
Right.
And I didn't have any regrets. Like,
right.
Normally with an emotional outburst, especially with a manifestor, when you break shit, when you get to that point, not that I'm like that anymore, but when you are that point, it's either replacing something or whatever. I don't have that.
Right. You didn't apply any other reason than, oh, I'm aware there's a chemistry. Let me move on to something that gives me peace. It was your signpost. So every type has that signpost. And we're literally becoming aware of all of these things through these 3 awareness centers. Scroll on over to the next slide. We'll see if I got these things in order. And I did. So do you guys remember this from last week? These are our awareness streams. Notice they're just streams in sets of 3s. 1, 2, 3 going up along the right, going up along the left, and then 1, 2, 3 from the top down. So this is just here as a reminder of last week. The reason I want this up again is because look at the 2 centers that are not included. They are not included in our awareness. The G center, our identity, the diamond, in the center, that one, that's our identity, our love of ourself, our love of our own direction, our love in a direction. That's our identity. And the sacral. Remember yesterday, Jen, I was saying, hey, you got to ask generators yes, no questions, because that sacral box is not aware. I affectionately, I'm a generator, so I can say this. I affectionately refer to it as the dumb box. It only knows yes, no, and I don't know. That's all it knows. But in that yes, no binary comes this amazing awareness of what is and is not true for the generator type. And when they run into frustration, they can realize, oh, I should just go do something else. I won't be frustrated. I'll be satisfied if I do something else. If I stay here, I'm going to stay frustrated. It is literally a signpost to say do something else. But these two centers, they have nothing to do with our awareness. However, our identity is traveling along a trajectory and taking our love in a direction with all that awareness and doing something with it as a human life in communion with the others. So if we live out our not self types, then we live in an angry, frustrated, bitter planet that's just disappointed all the time. When we go and do something else, suddenly frustration turns to satisfaction. And we generators and you manifestors and all the types start to turn this planet around and put out a frequency that's more aligned to our signature. For you, it's peace. For me, it's satisfaction. For the projector, yes, it's victory and success and a feeling of movement forward. And for the reflector, of course, it's the pleasantry of a surprise, this beautiful, wonderful surprise. Oh, this is great. I love this. The surprise of them to let us know we're doing okay. So I just wanted to point out these are these streams, and notice we would have covered this on an earlier episode. The very top triangle is a pressure center. It's the pressure to create concepts. It's like the thrower. It's constantly throwing a pressure onto that ajna. That ajna catches it and pitches it back to the throat. So look at the head center, like the ajna. I mean, like the catcher in baseball, just always catching that pressure. And think about the catcher in baseball. He has no idea what that pitcher is truly going to do, even though he sees signals and so forth, but he doesn't really know, or she. And so they got to catch that ball, and then the pitcher's the one that's always catching the ball back and pitching it again. So that's what this ajna does, but it's under pressure. And then at the very bottom is the root center. Again, adrenalized pressure to become aware. It's constantly, look at all that pressure pumping out of it, going to the right and to the left. And all those roads keep leading right up to all roads lead to Rome. They all go to the throat center. What it says about humanity is we are a manifesting species. We're supposed to do shit. We're supposed to say stuff and look around.
That's what we were designed to do in the first place. That's why we were created.
And we haven't gotten quite a handle on that because we still are stuck in the survival fears of the spleen. We're still stuck in survival and confusion and emotional ups and downs. We're stuck in it. These awarenesses have to come alive. They become aligned as you align to your strategy and your authority while knowing your type. So crank over to the next slide. Now, today we're going to deal with these mental pressures. I left Ra Uruhu's name up there on purpose because he brought this onto the plane. He gets his due. That crazy bastard. He who knows, man. You should go watch his experience on YouTube or whatever. I think you just type in encounter with Ra Uruhu, and he does so much stuff online. You can still get a lot of his things. But here's what we're looking at. What we're looking at is the pressure of the yellow head center is constantly pressuring down these streams. Gates 64, 61, 63, the pressure to know, the pressure to understand, the pressure to have an abstract sense of it all. So here we are trying to sense what's the scoop, know what's the scoop, and logically figure out what's the scoop. Below that, the ajna, the 47, the 24, and the 4, those are the catchers. And they're catching quite a load because that inspiration that comes in, that pressure from the deep gray area of the mind to suddenly hear or see something that may seem out of place, that's different, or that's something that they suddenly know, is pressuring this ajna. Hey ajna, think of something. Think it up. Think it up. You've got a neocortex, dude. You've got this frontal lobe right here, man. It's doing all this great work. It reads books. It says stuff. It has concepts. It gets into debates. It says all kinds of things. start thinking, and then it catches it, and then it pitches it to the 17, the 43, and the 11. Those are where they're suddenly either sight and sound, and it's being turned into something that then at the top of that throat center, 62, 23, and 56, those codons, these are all codons in our bodies, guys. These are genetic constructs in our body vibrating up, doing this stuff that we now can give these keynotes to. 62 is the detail, to go ahead and take that logical pressure and come up with an opinion that has details, backed up in details. It's always looking forward. We have 56 on the far right, which wants to stimulate something and tell a story. It's the design of a seeker and a searcher. It's trying to stimulate the other with what it sort of made sense of. And then we have 23, which is literally splitting apart, assimilating. It's taking all that racket that came from 61 down 24 down 43, and it's turning it into something that they can say out loud, that they can articulate or do. It's a lot of pressure, it's awareness, and it's the stuff that's the type of awareness that said, hey, this rocket ship didn't make us to the moon, let's fix it. This one did. And the same awareness that, 110,000 years ago, like I've mentioned before, said, oh my God, if we cooperate, we can kill the beast easier. And then that mental concepts started coming up with ways that olden time people would have cooperated with. Back along 100,000 years ago, we had to cooperate to the point of just trying to live to be 19 and 20 years old. So we were making babies young. The same concept that said, oh my God, if we sharpen a stick, and hunt together, boy, well, we're even better. Someone came up with a mental concept to sharpen a stick. Let's make it sharp. And now, bam, they can kill the beast and have dinner better. So that's what concepts are doing. They're under pressure to translate the stuff that's going to keep us going. And it's wicked alluring. It's sexy. It's like we want it. I got an idea. How many times? Oh, I got it. Welcome back, Carter. Harshak would always raise his hand. Oh. And then you call on him and he didn't know. Or sometimes he knew. But that's what that mental pressure is doing. So there are these streams of awareness, and something very interesting happens when you go to the next slide. And this
got a really quick question from Savannah. And her internet's still sketchy. But she asked, how does the hanging gates in the open head centers work?
When they're hanging gates, and a center, any center with a hanging gate, the hanging gate just gives that center what that hanging gate's theme is. So if you have a hanging gate 63, let's say, the pressure that comes out of there is going to be tilted towards doubt. If you have a 64, that hanging 64 in that open head center means the pressure, you'll be under pressure for all the things, but it's going to be slanted towards confusion, because confusion is a pressure that makes us come up with realizations. If you're not aware of it, though, that confusion just feels oppressive. It's just oppressive. I'm oppressed by my confusion. I'm scared by my doubt. And then the middle 161 is just the thinker. It's just the pressure to know. And knowing has to come in a pulse. There's no rule to knowing. You can't know. You can't know. Something that's wicked important in all of the, right, you can't know until you know.
I mentioned that yesterday about something. I got to go back and look at my chart, and it was a conversation about ordering food. And I said I normally pick out two things that I want on the menu, and I don't make the decision until I get asked by the waitress, because it's in that moment that I know what I want.
Right. That perfect. See, and so now the energy of that being in communion with you helped you to suddenly go from not knowing to knowing. Now, of the other people around you, if you're having dinner with other people or out to eat, suddenly they'll be like, they might pay no attention to that. Oh, she figured it out. You didn't just figure it out. In communion with the other, in their aura at that moment, even if it's on the phone, suddenly they asked and you knew.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're a parent to a child and that happens, as parents, you can look at your child and be, oh my God, the mental streams of awareness of my child were just connected up in communion with the other who finally asked, and now they know. Look at that. What a wonder. what a glory that was to just witness my child's awareness at work. I mean, it's magical. It's impressive is what it is. And we're impressive little creatures, let me tell you. So there's one more thing to notice about these three streams of awareness. One is they cross over in the ajna. They cross over and mix up with each other, just like you expect our genome to do, constantly mixing up. But the more important thing for us, for our purposes, is down the center is the individual. Is there a question?
Yes.
Fire away.
Okay. So if you have an open head center, does that mean you don't have mental pressure like those that do?
That is correct. But the not self of you amplifies that pressure. And you think, remember, I'm always going to say you think, until we get aware. You think you have even more pressure. Open centers amplify the duties of that center. So if the duty is at home, hey, my duty is to take out the trash, and you're amplified, you're taking out the trash at 100 miles an hour, dropping stuff and forgetting certain things, and you forgot the trash upstairs because you're in such a hurry. It's amplified. If it's the pressure to know, suddenly you don't know anything because it's so amplified, it's distorted. Think of an amplifier. You turn that amplifier up to 10 and you get distortion. You know, everyone knows that. You turn your boombox up all the way, and sooner or later, things starts to distort. So the important thing about these streams of awareness is to recognize this one thing. On the right and the left, those are the collective streams of awareness. There's the understanding, which is logical, trying to understand into the future. We lost visual, Jen. And then there is the, on the left-hand side, there is the abstract sensing. It's sensing, getting a sense of things and coming up with ideas. Those are two collective streams of awareness, and the individual is sandwiched in between. There is no tribe up here. That's what I'm driving at. There's no tribe up here. So if there's no tribe, that means all of this stuff is going along at a collective level only. And this is where a great war for the collective to try and scoop up all the individuals is happening on our planet right now. It's happening in such a pronounced way in these two centers of awareness, these three centers being articulated in, you better do what we say, we're going to make you afraid. And mentally speaking, the individual gets lost in all of that. As soon as they're lost, they're not listening to that spleen that says, no, that's no good. They're not listening to their responsive sacral, which is not such a dumb box after all, because it says, I don't like it. And that's true. They're not listening to that emotional wave on the other side, which the tribal version of that says, no, I'm not sensitive to that. This is not very supportive. I don't think I've come to clarity. I don't like it. The mental pressure has nothing to do with the tribe. Unfortunately, for us right now, well, there's no such thing as unfortunately, but as it has to do with us right now, the mental pressures are sandwiching on either side of the individual. So it gives the collective a hell of a leg up when it comes to confusing the individuals mentally, confusing them into fear so that they can control them. And that's what's happening right now on our planet. And the tribe is left to fight back, basically, through its tribal means, which is through the ego and the will of the tribe. So the tribe's under a lot of pressure to survive. And we're seeing that play out on our planet. Jen, we're still off, so I'm not sure if my camera's on. There we go.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody being patient. I'm glad you're still here. I'm trying to pull everything back up.
Did everything I say get recorded?
I think so. You seem to still be live. So
I was talking, baby. I don't care if it goes.
Thank you.
We don't care if it goes dark. Bear with us. You know, we're not the super mega center yet.
When the lights go out, Patriots are in control.
Yeah, when the lights go out, the Patriots stand by. Please, we'll be back. That's so funny. And I don't give a flying flop. Let's move on to the next slide. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, I'm pulling it up. I'm firing my engines back up. Bear with me.
Hey, Jen, what did one shepherd say to the other?
I don't know, Dan, what?
Let's get the flock out of here.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Thank you guys for holding on. And I'm so glad that I didn't lose everything.
We shouldn't lose anyone over a little bit of darkness. We're in here for stuff that's way too important.
No, we shouldn't. Okay,
Yep.
let me get to...
That is such a cool picture, Jennifer. I love this fucking thing.
Thank you, Dan. I do too.
Yeah, we rock.
I love our branding.
The Lords of Thunder. Bam!
The Lords of Thunder.
That's us, baby.
Okay. So I think we're on this. We just got done with the mental streams.
Yep. So here's what's at top. The mental forces, these forces of awareness. On the left is abstract, the 6447. It's collective. It's a collective abstract trying to share its confusion to its realization process. And if it can't share it, it becomes oppressive. So gate 47 is called oppression and gate 64 is called confusion. And that channel on the left is the channel of abstraction. We're being abstract. If you have it defined in your body graph, you are constantly in mental motion, going over the past, making sense of the past, and coming up with realizations. And it's oppressive when you have no new realizations because the pressure never stops. So if the pressure never stops and you have no realizing outlet for it in that conceptualizing ajna, that pressure becomes oppressive. So, Jennifer, you have this channel in your body graph, and I do too. I know moments of extreme oppressiveness mentally where it's just turned into anxiety. It's just turned into like, this sucks. I just want to go to sleep, sleep it off.
Yes. I struggled a lot with anxiety and depression growing up.
Yep. I bet you did. We all did. Our parents didn't know. Had my parents known, they would have said, "Oh, Danny, that's perfect. You just have unconscious confusion. That means something good is coming." Had your parents known, they would have said, "Hey, you just have some confusion. It's going to become a realization as soon as you go through your emotional wave. It's perfect for you."
Savannah asks, what is the gift and high expression of this channel?
The high expression of it is we're tuned into the whole universe, and the pressure that comes into us, that is ours as we have it, to come up with a realization is a mental concept. And the gift is clarity. You come to clarity from confusion. You come to the high gift is the clarity of the realization you just had, your aha moment. Aha, I got it. From something terribly oppressively confusing, 1,000 details, too much shit, to suddenly, bam, I got it. I've become clear.
The answers are coming in. What would be the struggles and low expression of this channel?
The struggle of this channel would be I'm confused and I have no realization, and I think it's a problem. It's not a problem. As soon as you think it's a problem, it stays a problem. Period.
That's right.
Yep.
That is right.
And this is a collective force, the collective force, life force of this abstraction. It's doing such beautiful work, dude. It can take anything and make sense of it. It can take anything and make sense of it. But its overriding keynote is it must be shared. Let me share my confusion and sense making with you. That's what the collective does, just like our New World Order collective. Let me share my New World Order with you. It was very abstract in 1910 when we were figuring out eugenics. And now that we figured out how to kill y'all, it's become clear. Let me share that with you. That's what the collective is trying to do.
And that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. So on the right-hand side, there's no tribe up here in these mental forces. That's what I was getting at. That's why this is the Great Awakening.
So Savannah asked a question: would these people have would people with this channel, would they have a tendency to overshare?
Quite potentially, yeah. I mean, look at me. I finally got through the abstract confusion of my own human design 13 years ago, and I haven't stopped sharing since. Yes.
That's me too. I tend to I always tell myself at the end, God, I need to just stop talking because I'm
No,
giving too much information.
never stop, Jen. I mean, if you want to, you'll know because you'll be in the mood. The impact isn't right. The piece doesn't feel good. You're getting angry, whatever it is. But other than that, don't. I never stop. Basically, I guess I censor myself now and again, but I'm aware that I'm doing it.
Savannah asked, do you have to wait for the invitation?
These are projected channels. So if you're literally trying to share your abstract notion with someone else, even though you're a manifestor or a generator or even as a projector, this new abstract awareness of clarity, if it's not invited by the other, they're not listening. So the short answer to your question is yes.
And that's to have the greatest impact?
In order to have the greatest impact. Having said that, if the clarity is so strong and whatever's going on in your body says share it anyways, sometimes you will still impact the other. You'll give them some new clarity to think about. I've done that before. They don't want to hear a dang thing, and I pick the right keynote and the right words, and I leave it at that. So, Savannah, to finish answering your question, if you must share it, do it like the salesman does it. Share it, then shut up.
Perfect response.
Say it, then don't talk anymore after it, and they'll either talk or not. Now, the one on the other side, this is logical, 63 to 4. So 63 to 4 is the understanding circuitry. It's collective. It still must be shared. Let me share my understanding with you. So on the other side, let me share my abstract notions. I'm clear. I got it. I figured it out. And over here, it's let me share my understanding. It's logical. 63 says, instead of I'm confused, and confusion as a pressure, which has no bounds in a certain way, no limits. Doubt is in 63, and that is limited. That is focused. It's these two gates, 64 and 63, and these two channels, abstraction and the channel of logic. These two channels, not only are they collective, but they're visual. They're the visual happenings of our neocortex. They literally take the thing that we saw in this channel. We saw a pattern. I see a pattern. Someone shows up and their pattern is different. They just look different. They're out of sorts. Suddenly doubt creeps in. It's a pressure to come up with gate 4, a formula. It's a pressure to come up with a formula. And that formula is to assuage the doubt. Oh, they just weren't feeling good. That's why. Formula solved, doubt gone. It's a design of mental anxiety mixed with mental ease. It's a design of mental pressure, momentary mental pressure, the awareness to have a doubt, the pressure to have a doubt, thrown to the catcher. Gate 4 catches that pressure and says, okay, I got a formula for that. The person showed up to our meeting and they were a little disheveled, but they said they were all messed up this morning and out of sorts. Okay. So they didn't have time to put themselves together. We can still carry on with our meeting.
Two questions come through.
Say it again.
2 questions have come through. Savannah asked, what is the gift and high expression of this channel?
The gift is that you don't stay in the doubt. The highest expression is that your formalization just happens. And if it doesn't happen right away, that the doubt pressure doesn't overcome you.
And what is the low expression and struggle of this channel? The doubt pressure
overcomes you.
Okay.
Just overcomes you. This too is a collective channel. Hey, I've come up with a formula for the Great Reset. Let me share my formula for you. Before I had a doubt how I would limit the population and do all this and all that and whatever. And now as a collective forces above all you guys, we figured it out. We got a good formula and, we've got some good stuff. We'll be able to surveil you. We'll be able to give you, basic monetary income. Oh, this is great. We'll be able to inject you all the time. Oh, we're going to give you passports. This is great. We figured it out. Oh, by the way, we're going to kill your money system too. You don't need it. We're going to install a new one. It's called stakeholders. So some people be stakeholders and everyone else won't. It's a great formula. They love it. Up top, they love it. Down here at the tribal level, we don't, but the tribe can't get in here and fight. There's no tribal definition here, because that center one, 61 to 24, 61 is just sort of the thinker. It's the pressure to know. It's simply the pressure to know the unknowable, or to take what was unknowable and recognize it as unknowable, one or the other. It's the just simple pressure to know. That's not a doubt. That's not a confusion. It can feel a little bit like a confusion or a doubt, but it's a sudden not knowing turning into a knowing.
Is that where your intuition is hitting?
Absolutely. And you pick the right word, intuition, because this would be in this individual. This is individual definition. Remember, the collective's keynote is to share, and it's not very personal. Let me share my food with you. That's nice and tribal. Let me share my death camp with you because my name is Adolf Hitler. Not so tribal, quite collective, but it's still shared. And all the sharing that happens in between, hey, let me share my wrench with you so that you can finish your job. Hey, will you share your oil with me so I can finish my oil job? Whatever it is, sharing. But that internal one, the middle one, 6124, the channel of the thinker. This is about knowing. This channel must take this pressure that says, I know or I don't know, and turn it into a rationalization. 824 is there to rationalize. Okay, you got this, you got this, you got this, you got this. Aha, I know. That's different than clarity. Clarity comes from confusion. You can be mired in that confusion for days and weeks and years. But knowing is just a sudden thing. It's suddenly, it knows or it doesn't know. And its keynote is, let me empower you with my new knowing. And if nobody wants to hear the new knowing, then the thing is, it's so unique. Whenever someone has their new knowing, it is the first time on our planet that has happened. And the being is simply unique, period. And it's an awareness that is called thinking. That's all. So logic is mental ease mixed with doubt. I would also call it sometimes mental anxiety mixed with ease. Abstraction is just mental activity, constant mental activity, always coming to new clarities. And once you come to a clarity, you can do it all over again, have new clarity. And then in the center is just awareness. It's the thinker. It's just thinking. They don't know why they're thinking. They're just thinking until suddenly gate 24 says, I caught that pressure. My awareness says, now I know. I'm a knower. I went from a thinker to a knower. The abstract clarity, for instance, at 47, it may have its aha moment, but until it's explained and turned into a knowing that it can share with everyone else, it doesn't really know. Same thing with the doubt. Until it's turned into a logical pattern that can repeat itself over and over again, sort of like a mathematical formula, it doesn't really know until and it never knows, because even though it proved it over and over again, it's still got a pressure to doubt. It's got to keep doubting to keep us safe into the future. It doesn't matter that the traffic lights always work. They could go wrong. Something could happen. Let's check that program again. Let's run a program that checks the program to make sure the traffic lights stay on time. That's doubt. But then it turns into mental ease because they came up with a formula. Got a good formula. Don't worry. The traffic lights will work on time. We came up with a program to watch the program. Sort of like what malware does, or the software that protects our computer.
Absolutely. I have a couple questions. Ruby wants to know, with the half red and the channel number 63, there's a half red bar. What does that mean?
You mean gate number 63?
Gate number 63, yes.
Is it if it's part red and part black because it's striped?
Mm-hmm.
That just means that you've got a lot of doubt pressure going on, and it's in an open center, as I recall, Ruby. So that open center, right, Ruby? It's in an open center. I remember this definition.
She says it's not striped. I can bring her on.
Bring her. Oh, if it's just red. Hey, Ruby.
Hi, Dan.
Oh my God, so good to see you, hon. So it's just red in your body graph, right?
Yeah, it's halfway. It's halfway between 63 and 64. It's red, and then the same with 61 and 24. It's actually half black on the 24 gate, and so
You're talking
curious
about it's a gate. You have the gates 63 and 64 in your body graph. Yeah, you do. That's right, because you're in causal consciousness. Okay, so and they're red. That's right. They're both red on your body graph, as I recall.
So it's halfway red on 60. It's halfway. Gate 63 is half red.
Yep.
And then gate 64 is half black.
Okay.
I'm
So
not saying
it means
right. I'm still learning.
it's all good. The black means that's what you're aware of. That's the who we think we are. So you're aware that sometimes you have this oppressive feeling of confusion, but it's intermittent. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. So when it comes along, you're not used to it always being there, and it can be terribly debilitating in the moment, thinking about too many things that don't matter, and it's confusing.
I have that.
Unconsciously, that 63, that comes out of your body, the other side of you, that literally is we're just getting acquainted with now as a species, that we have a body with its own awareness, its own mind. The body has its own mind, its own brain in a way. It's got its own awareness, and that awareness delivers a chemistry. And so out of a tunnel for you comes a doubt. Oh God, I'm so confused about something. And then it's intermittent, and suddenly a doubt will hit you out of nowhere. The confusion you can feel coming. I'm not going to do that. That's going to be confusing, you'll say. But the doubt comes out of a tunnel. You have no choice over that as it relates to when it comes. It just shows up as a chemistry to suddenly have the pressure to doubt. So the trick for you is to not get swept away in it. Oh, my body gave me doubt. Maybe there's something here with it. If you feel frustrated, do something else, because ultimately that doubt is probably about what you're in the midst of doing. If it's contemplating something important, go do the dishes or something. I'm just thinking of mundane things, because you're a generator. Us generators, we can always just put our generative energy to work and do the dishes for an hour, do all the dishes, find the dishes in your kids' room, get the cat's bowl, spare no expense. And by the time you're done doing all the dishes, you'll be so satisfied, and the doubts will have been assuaged, and you'll be in your signature of satisfaction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to finish up with the 6124. Thank you, Ruby. Love you.
Savannah has one quick question. The channel, or the 6124, that one, does that struggle with being around a lot of noise?
Oh, yes, it does. All it wants is quiet, because all it is sound. The two outside collective ones are visual. They have everything to do with our visual cortex. We see the patterns we want to have. We see the difficulty of our confusion. It's like little film clips we're always putting together from the past, or doubts that look into the future. 6124, this is acoustic in nature. It's not acoustic necessarily in a sound you can play on a guitar or something or speak, because it's not anything yet. Don't forget, the individual mutative way is a pulse. It's nothing until it's something. It's the definition of creation. So absolutely, too much noise, racket in the background. The phone, when you don't hang it up for long enough, a landline, it starts making that beep 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 sound. Mm-hmm. Oh God, that'll drive a 6124 crazy. It'll drive a 24 crazy. Just like, shut that racket off. It just drives you crazy. So if you have this channel or either of those two gates, you need times where you're just in absolute silence. Find a padded room, man. Get some headphones that cancel sound and put them on for 20 minutes as a gift to yourself. Cancel out everyone, especially your husband or your wife. Cancel them for just a few minutes, but remind them that you love them afterwards. Right? I mean, that's communion.
Well, yeah, so, yes.
And they'll ask, what were you doing? It's like, I love you so much, I had to cancel you for a little while. That's what it is. Which, whatever.
This is why it's important that everybody know their human design, because if they don't, some people would,
take that personally.
Take that personally.
Mm-hmm. That's not personal. Yeah. So
Savannah has one more question. So would they kind of struggle with auditory sensitivity?
They could very well. It depends if they're living out their strategy and authority. If they're a generator and they're frustrated, they're going to be auditorily sensitive to everything, especially the teacher talking. Hey, teach, shut the flock up. I can't stand you right now. And that would be true if it's a kid. And as an adult, we will pick different language to try and be kinder, but it's still the same truth. Don't forget, the 5-year-old tells us what's true. And this mind here, with all this beautiful pressure to come up and think up stuff, this mind is here thinking up the things that are going to help us navigate the truthful decision making that our 5-year-old's chemistry gave us. The 5-year-old gives us the yes, the no, the feels good, doesn't feel good, the splenic awareness, this is healthy, not healthy. That's always the 5-year-old. It gives us our truth, and the mental awareness figures out how best to execute that truth through the pressure to be inspired to come up with concepts that deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
But in our not self 7-centered world, where we are 9-centered beings living in a 7-centered hangover from the old way, we think this mind is now supposed to come up with the ideas that we're actually supposed to act on. I can't stand that noise, therefore I hate you. I can't stand you. I can't stand the sound of your voice. I want a divorce. No, just cancel them out for a little while. Or whatever. I'm using extreme examples. They can be anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just change the radio station. Turn the radio off. If you're driving down the road, maybe crack the window a hair so you get that white noise of wind blowing across you. White noise is probably going to be a friend to this channel. I don't have it, but anybody who does can attest to some kind of just steady droning, something in the background might be helpful. Silence is the most helpful, that's for sure, or at least it's wicked helpful. So let's move to the next slide. Logic, abstract, and individualism now gets to the throat. These are called the metamorphic forces. So up top on the other slide, you don't need to go back. We have these mental pressure forces coming from a genetic pressure to figure shit out. And now, after you figured it out, remember I said the ajna is both the catcher and the thrower. So it's basically the pitcher. It's got to catch the ball from the catcher, and it's got to pitch it and try and make another throw. So
quickly.
So here it is throwing. Up top, it caught. Down below, it throws. 17 throws out an opinion. 42 throws out this just freaky knowing. It's a freak. It just knows or it doesn't know. And 11 throws out an idea. So
43 is a freak? Is that what you say?
43 is a freak. I'm a 43. I'm a freak. All 43s are freaks. 4323 is the design.
I'm a 43.
Yeah,
well, I've got a black line coming out of it.
Yeah, I've got it striped. I've got it both unconscious and conscious. But let's deal with the collective channels first. Acceptance, the design of an organizational being, where gate 17 is taking that logical pressure from above and it's turning it into a logical opinion of what it's going to do. It's turning it into a logical opinion of how's it going to basically articulate the details. So 17 is this conceptualizing that says the formula, my opinion on that formula is let's create a program to watch the program for the streetlights so the streetlights don't go off kilter and out of time. And then I got another opinion. Let's create an alert system. If something goes out of whack, I'll be alerted, and the commissioner of the streetlights will be alerted, and the mayor will be alerted, and the chief of police will be alerted. These are all logical opinions. What's it looking towards, Jen? It's looking towards the future. That's what logic understanding does. It looks towards the future to say we want logical patterns for the future. It's simply the pressure to create logical patterns in a detailed way so that our future can be secured. I like the streetlights as an example because the streetlights keep us essentially logically the traffic flowing. Essentially, I mean, I'm certain there's some cities that might argue that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's whatever. Essentially, you get the idea. So that's what this gate is doing. It's what its acceptance is it accepts the formula. It accepts that it has the details. It becomes an organizational being because it accepts to first know and be able to understand. It must be the student. It is the student of its doubt and its formulas until it can finally become the teacher. To lead, I must first follow. I accept that. I can't just start out with, hey, this is my opinion, is how it's going to go. That's the tribal leader. They can do that. Not this. This must be invited. And it must be shared. And you go over to the other side, that's not so cool and logical anymore. That's now getting more hot, and it's more passionate, and it's curiosity, the searcher, the storyteller. I've got an idea. Suddenly that idea came from the abstract pressure on the other slide. That was the abstract pressure to come to clarity. And once it starts to come to clarity, it crosses over that ajna to gate 11. It says, this is my idea from that clarity. I caught the pressure and I'm turning it into an idea. And its whole job is to stimulate gate 56, the stimulation of the other. It's a metamorphic throat process that, like all the other gates, metamorphically takes the noise and the sights and the sounds inside this center and turns it into language. It articulates it. And 56 is all about articulating something that's stimulating. The oral tradition was passed on over generations. And that's where we started. Notice we didn't start with logical written down stuff. We started with the oral storytelling tradition. Well, those stories got more and more fantastic down the road because they had to be stimulating to keep the tribe aware. You got a 10-person tribe, you can sort of tell it matter-of-factly. Now it's a 20 and 30-person tribe. I better make it interesting. Now it's a 200-person tribe. Let me tell a really, really stimulating story about our past to keep all the kids interested around the campfire so that they can know our history. The storyteller, stimulating the curiosity of the other and putting that stimulation into them through their aura, stimulating them to want to continue to hear the rest of the story. The gate of the storyteller. So that's what these forces are doing. They're catching it, and I think the next slide shows the crossover.
Hold on, I got a couple of questions.
Okay.
Does the 1156 channel make really great teachers?
Absolutely, because they can't wait to stimulate those children. And if they get sour and stop wanting to stimulate those children into a new knowing, they're not a very good teacher anymore and they're burnt out. That's okay.
Interesting.
That would be a time for them to follow their strategy and say, yeah, I'm burnt out. I don't like it here anymore. And that's great. Let the next new teacher in.
And would they call that the Einstein channel?
Absolutely. Einstein had this channel. He was able to take all that abstract everything and just turn it into ideas that he then he did a reasonably good job of stimulating the planet with his theory of relativity now, didn't he?
That was the 1156?
Yep.
I have that.
Yes, you do have that, Jen.
It's
You
red
do.
and
You do a
black.
reasonably good job of stimulating the other with the stories that are important to you. Once you've come to clarity and you're in the mood.
Okay.
Einstein was a simple generator, as I recall. So we're going to go through these slides a little quicker because I basically keynoted all of this. But notice how 6447 crosses over the Ajna and goes to 1156. They're not straight lines up and down like the other streams. The other streams don't cross. There's only one spot the other streams cross, and they're not in the streams. They're through the sacral. But so they cross over. They're creating a genetic crisscross, just like we expect our genes to do. Our genes don't move in a straight line. They mix it up.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we're so unique. So again, just to keynote it, confusion through the oppressiveness of the confusion to a realization that suddenly becomes the concept of an idea put together in an idea, finally turned into a stimulating tale. So from confusion to tales. Let me tell you a tale. Let me stimulate you, really. So it's really from confusion to stimulation, but it's to tales. I'm going to tell you a tale. And the storyteller is wicked important. There's a lot of truth in these stories. Be they, we already know there's a lot of truth in in the biblical stories. They give us so much stuff that we need to know, in ancient tradition stories, the gods of this, the gods of that, the old Mayans. If you think of the civilization, as those stories got turned down over the years and millennia, the stories of our Native American Indians, those were passed down. They were passed down through those tribes. But nevertheless, this stream is not tribal. It is collective. Let me share my theory of relativity with you. Einstein was forced to share that. Thank God he was forced to share that, because if he was just a 4323 freak, he might have still had the same theory of relativity, but it's entirely possible if he couldn't explain it, it would have never got out. Entirely possible, because the individual is a freak. Go to the next slide.
So I got to ask a question. So when you say the individual is a freak, can you define what the freak is? Like,
the freak is because all individual awareness, all individual empowerment is their hunger to empower the other. But that empowerment only comes in a pulse. It comes in a moment. That means it's not there, and then it's there. A pulse, spike. Doctor, the patient is dead. Flatline, flatline. Oh, no, they're not. Beep. They're alive.
okay.
Like that crazy guy in that cool movie. What was his name? The Asian guy who's always so cool. It's like, what's up? My name's Chan. I just got a heart attack. Heart stopped for a moment, then it started again. Remember?
No, I don't. I didn't see that.
I forgot what it was. It's just those funny guys. Remember Mike Tyson had a tiger that they stole and all that. My name's Chan. I just died for a minute, then come back. That's a pulse. He was right. His heart stopped. It started again. It was the funniest line in that whole movie. I loved it.
On the 11, I think she said 57, but I think it's 56. The low. What is the low expression of the 1156?
That I have ideas that you haven't, that the other hasn't invited, and I'm telling you anyways, and now I'm bitter and frustrated because I can't tell you you're not listening. The higher expression is, I've managed to stimulate you with my ideas, and boy, do I feel great. I just shared that. And the lower expression would definitely be, I can't share it, and so I think there's something wrong, rather than the other isn't ready. Hey, if they won't listen, they won't listen. It's not their fault. That's your form. That's your form's indication to know you're feeling frustration, anger, bitterness, one of these things, disappointment. Go do something else. Literally go do something. Again, if you're a generator, go wash the dishes. Just because just doing is, using that generative energy. If you're a projector, go focus on something else. Start to read something. Start to master a different system for a moment, because you haven't mastered the system of that being that won't listen. That's okay. Not your fault. Not theirs. There is no fault. Fault, shame, blame, and guilt. These are the work of the not self of the collective trying to squish us, basically, trying to keep us in this negative vibration of guilt, shame, and blame. That's not us. Okay. So this one, it's the same thing. Notice how it crosses over. If I could put them together, which we can't, don't sweat it, would create a crisscross right in the middle of the ajna. And so doubt, it's just a momentary thing. It's like, oh, I doubt this. And doubt comes as a sudden fear. It creates a fear that there's a chaos. I don't know what it is. The fear is I don't have the answer. Suddenly, fear, afraid. So all these gates in the ajna have their fear. 24, the fear that I won't know. I can't make sense. I can't know it. I'm afraid. I'll never know. 47 is I'm oppressed. I'm a fear of oppression. I'm just going to fear I'll be oppressed forever and I'll never be unconfused. So this doubt fear is an immediate doubt fear because it's looking forward. It's a doubt that I might not survive. If we don't use the street lights and use something else as an example, food. So the president said food's going to start becoming scarce. Everyone doubts whether they have enough. They doubt their survival. They doubt, let me come up with a new formula. The formula is we're all going to go to the store. Everyone grab a cart. Right?
Toilet paper.
So,
oh my God, we're not going to have enough.
So, but again, you can see the doubts turn into answers. That answer becomes a logical opinion. Now that understanding gets turned into details. Gate 62 is basically the ponderance of all the details. It's the gate of details. And it's able to take all of that visual information and turn that concept into language. Let me share my details with you. It's logical, and I've got all the details to back it up. People with this channel, they've got all the details. They're loaded down with details. They won't even start their opinion until they have lots of details. They need the details. And they are the details. They are the expression of details on this planet as an expression. Go to the next one. Remember, these two are collective. sharing, no tribe involved. And look at this individual right down the center. It's squashed between the two collective streams of awareness. It's even mixed up by it because they cross right across the individual and the ajna. The collective fights its war most deeply for the heart and the mind of the individual here. The individual is just here as a freak. It doesn't know until it knows. The individual is here to be mutative. The collective hates mutation. The collective's like, I came up with my logical patterns. I went through the whole confusion process. I had great ideas. We turned them into logical patterns. We got all the formulas. Don't you take your individual bullshit and come along here with a new knowing and change that. Don't change that. Don't change what we've just put in place. The collective can't stand the individual, yet the collective is made up of individuals. It's a hell of a conundrum for the old seven-centered way that is currently burning us down. We've got to beat it back. The old seven-centered way must go. That old way simply knew cooperation, strategicness, survival, and it did not need to be very nice about it. In fact, it wasn't. It isn't very nice about it at all. The individual says, hey, I want to be my own unique. That's the thing. The individual is unique. Whatever the individual does, it's the first time in the flipping universe that has ever happened. It's the first and only time. And it was brought to you courtesy that one unique being in that moment. Every individual on this planet is constantly having this happen. They were the first person to think of it, the first person to say it, the first person to do it. Whatever it was.
Savannah asked, isn't the gate 43 about being efficient?
Absolutely. So the collective is like, we came up with our efficiencies. Thank you very much, individual. So the individual gave the collective everything it ever was. The collective takes it and concretizes it, likes to turn it into something concrete. And along comes the individual and says, I know you have that concrete. You even put steel reinforced rebar into that concrete. I realize you'd like that concrete foundation to stay that way, but oops, I came up with a new efficiency. And if I can explain it, I'm going to seem like a genius. And if I can't explain it, I'm going to seem like a freak. It's why we call the individual the freak. There's always this process the individual is going through that is somewhere between genius and freak. And if they truly can't explain anything and they're always trying to barge in with their knowing that they think they know, don't forget this knowing from 61 down to 24, down to 43 to 23. This is acoustic. It's just a sound rattling around in their head. That's not even an audible sound. It's not words. It's not words until it gets to 23 and becomes assimilated, split apart and reassimilated into language. That's a hell of a process. Thank you very much. You know, it's a lot of heavy lifting done by gate 23 down there. It's taking that which is unknowable, turns it into an explainable knowing. It explains. That's why it's called the gate of explanation. It must explain its knowing, or else it's marginalized and it can't empower anybody. The thing is, as the individual empowers others in the collective or the tribe, they what it really does is it brings the likelihood of changing something. They bring something new. That's why this word mutation keeps coming in. The individual is mutative. And here mutative is just a synonym for newness. I figured out a different way to get to school. I'm an individual freak. I'm counting my steps. And I finally figured out the way that gets me 832 steps. I was stuck at 835 the whole way for the past 2 years. I got it down to 832. That's an individual knowing. They love that stuff. Now, if they can explain that and it's of value to somebody else, they just change the way everyone walked to school. Suddenly, everyone will start copying that individual. Well, you're cutting across traffic at an angle, I know, but it's shaved off 5 steps. Yeah, but you can't cut across traffic because we're the logical collective and we've went through this abstract process of figuring out how traffic's going to work. You can't cut across traffic that way. The individual says, well, I got to cut across traffic at an angle. So now there's a war. The individual brought something new and mutative. And the collective says, hey, we got cops and everything, dude. We're going to give you jaywalking tickets. We're even going to arrest you if you keep walking across the street at an angle. You got to walk across at the crosswalk. So now they're a freak again because they want to keep walking at an angle to save those steps.
That makes sense.
And that becomes a strife. Now the individual is going to have to give up on that because the collective will win. Saving 5 and 10 steps on the way to school isn't so important. However, some military commander might see that and be like, I'm going to chart that path out because if something happens in this town and I need to get from point A to point B with a pack of soldiers, I'm going to do what that freak did. I'm not listening to what the laws of the road were. Again, I'm making up examples, but that's how the individual is mutative. The individual just mutative that civilian officer who wants to have a new way for his legion of troops to get from point A to point B. So they're going to adapt what the individual just came up with because it's better for them, but they may never need to put it to work. They just may never need to use it.
Savannah asked a question. How would Hanging Gate 43 be expressed personality-wise?
I have a breakthrough. I know. I think I know. It's an insight. I have an insight. I'm dying to break through. It's a hunger to break through. I need to break through. Let me break through. Please let me break through. How come no one's letting me break through? It's the Lisa and Bart Simpson. Dad.
So the Hanging Gate would be like if you have a black.
If it's black, you're aware that you're doing it. If it's red, it comes out of a tunnel and you can't help it, and it just starts happening, and it feels very frustrating.
I'm aware that I do it.
Yes, I'm aware that I do it too because I have it black and red. My line, I have a 43 line 3 in that hexagram, and it's the will withstand any condemnation, will undergo any kind of retribution just to get my insight into an awareness. So, I mean, you can even call me a loser, and I'll still I'll withstand that. I'll keep withstanding that and leaning into it, and it's gotten me in lots of trouble. All my gates in my body graph, I'm certain, have helped me get divorced a couple times.
I'm sure. Okay. Well, that's a whole nother show that we can do on that. One more question. So if you don't have 23, do they struggle to express how to be efficient in their genius?
Absolutely. And the trick to them is to allow them to follow their strategy and authority and invite it out of them. If it's your child, you're witnessing them struggle. Get in their aura and say, take a moment. Do you have it? Can you explain it yet? No? Okay, let's wait, because it's in a pulse, they would say to their little 4 and 5-year-old or 8-year-old. It's in a pulse, honey. It'll show up in a pulse. We just have to wait for it. Let's practice surrender for a little bit and go, quote, do something else.
I just had an epiphany.
Please, do tell.
Well, I'm realizing what the pulses are. It's like those ideas that come to me. Sometimes they slip away, and I tell myself not to stress out about it. I wait for it to come back around.
Right.
Because it eventually does come back around, and that would be that pulse.
Yep, that's the pulse. All individuals have it.
Yeah, it's bringing more awareness to the pulse so that you can recognize when it's happening, when it's not happening.
And that it's not up to you. That's the helplessness. That's the surrender. It's not up to you. It's up to your body's chemistry to give it to you. That mind that's in your body is constantly delivering a chemistry that makes you aware. And when you're an individual definition comes in a pulse. But up here in the head ajna center, the collective is just pounding away at that individual. I'm going to grab your mind. I'm going to take over your pulse. I'm going to make you be afraid that you don't know, afraid that you can't break through, afraid that you're inadequate, afraid that your ideas are going to go dark, afraid that you're going to be rejected. That gate 43 comes with a deep fear of rejection, that what you know is going to be rejected.
Yes.
You know it. It's sitting up there and you're knowing. The kid knows it. The adult knows it. They know it. They just can't always get it out. If you don't have a gate 23, that's called a limitation. Understand, you're here to meet endless gate 23s in your life. You'll meet them all over the place. And then you'll be able to explain your knowing, or you'll come up with your knowing in your own timing. It'll show up in a pulse, and suddenly you've just transcended the lack of a gate 23. You have to wait for that pulse. And it's not up to you.
Beautiful.
So go to the next slide. Remember, all things start from pressure. We are a pressurized species. So you see these awareness centers we had before. If you can put your pointer on the left-hand splenic awareness center, spleen. Put your pointer on the ajna up top. That's not green. It's no, that's the pressure center right below. That would be the ajna concepts. So spleen, survival awareness, intuition, right moment to moment. Ajna is in an awareness that holds on to memory over all of time. So we've got moment to moment, held on to through all of time. That's why mental stuff gives us such a problem, because when we were 8 years old, something happened and we're still holding on to that. We think that's a trauma that matters. It doesn't matter. We don't care. Trust me on that. You don't care about your past trauma. Although we have to work through it. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm just saying we have to work through it, because the truth of the matter is you don't want to hold on to it in this awareness that happens over all of time.
It does not define who you are.
Yep, it does not define who you are. And then the last awareness center, the emotional solar plex awareness center, this is awareness in a wave. So this is constantly giving us this emotional hope to pain wave, up and down through hope and pain. And as soon as you're aware of it, it doesn't have to be this incredible pain where you're down there for a year of this sadness, not knowing, all this holding on to these ideas that you had over all of time, helping you not know further, not listening to the spleen that is aware moment to moment to moment as to what's good for you. If this awareness that is in a up and down wave that goes from hope to pain, joy to despair, it starts to, as soon as you become aware of it, it suddenly starts to compress. You don't have to it's fun to get up to the high joy and be wicked excited. But when you don't stay there, it's not depressing. You start to go back down on that wave a little bit, and suddenly you won't go down into the super low like the Grand Canyon. Maybe you'll just go down a little bit. Maybe you'll never even get to the point where you're sad on many occasions, and the wave will simply plane along. Awareness is what kills the pain part of it. Mm-hmm. So, and you got to see it. Seeing it kills it. Just like you saw last night with that thing when you had your aha moment when we were on the phone. So the point being here, pressure is what's doing this. The root center pressures all this motion. It's adrenaline. It's the adrenals of the body. Adrenaline pressure is pretty intense. You know it when you get all ramped up and someone's about to fight you, and suddenly you're so scared and adrenalized, you can't even feel that you broke your knuckle. You can't feel that you got cut. In war situations, soldiers have explained over and over again, they didn't know they were shot. That's adrenaline. So you take that adrenalized force and push it to that spleen and to that, and pressurize that spleen and pressurize that solar plex center. You wonder why our awarenesses are under so much pressure to become aware. So, and if you're not aware of that, it feels like a pressure, and suddenly you're lost in the soup of just too much stuff. Mm-hmm. And up top, the pressure center is a pressure trying to pressure conceptualizing. Yet down below, we do have tribal awareness. Up above, we don't. Up above, we don't. And all roads lead to Rome, right? All these awarenesses, they're all headed straight to the throat. They're being pressurized, and they want to get to the throat for expression indeed. They want to do stuff. If you cruise over to the next slide, we can see what this pressure, what has happened to us. So remember the title, The Great Awakening. Most everyone recognizes this seven-centered being on the left. I don't even know the names of the chakras for the seven-centered being. I know there's a crown.
Do you want me to go over them?
Please, hit them.
Crown.
Yep.
Third eye.
Yep.
Throat.
Yep.
Heart. Solar plexus.
Yep.
Sacral.
Yep.
Root.
So
these are your seven primary chakras in the body.
Right. Well, on the right-hand side, the nine-centered being has 9 primary chakra centers now, because that heart center, which in the old days we thought of as our love and our heart, right? We always put our love in our heart. Well, guess what? That love is so strong. Mm-hmm. When we underwent our shift in 1781, coincident with the discovery of the planet Uranus, The planet was aware, our genome was sewed up, and it gave us new centers. We evolved. Look what it split into. That heart is still there. That red fiery heart center that is the will of the tribe split off from the identity so that the identity could be left alone. The identity doesn't need the fire of that ego willpower that powers up the tribe and instinctually is aware of what it needs to be supportive and sensitive and not fail and keep a continuity so that the babies can be born and the babies can live and we can keep a tribe. Yet all that mental functioning of the collective is trying to squish the individuals in that tribe into thinking you don't need your tribe anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We need a tribe or the babies die. Period. No tribe, no life. I mean, that's because the tribe runs through the sacral. Remember earlier, the two centers that weren't involved in these awareness streams as either a pressure, an awareness, or its articulation thereof, meaning the throat, were this G center and the sacral. So the G center got split up, and it has now got an identity that need not be under pressure. The identity need not have a pressure. It just needs to do what our identity does in our 9-centered communion way. Don't forget, 9-centered communion, 7-centered cooperation. Cooperation's not very friendly necessarily. I just need to cooperate long enough until I can steal all your shit. Communion says I don't want to steal all your shit. I want to be in communion with you. Even if I don't like you, I'll still commune with you a little bit over there. You'll commune with a friend of mine and I'll commune with that person maybe. Who knows? But communion says, I don't want to steal your shit. I don't want you to die. Cooperation says, we cooperated. You can die now. That's the collective. That's the old 7-centered way. The new 9-centered way says, no, our identity is going to take love, this chemistry we know of deeply as love. The old 7-centered way knew it as the will of our love. The new 9-centered way says the will is the tribes. This is just pure love. And that love is going to empower in a direction. It's going to empower a direction. It's going to generate a direction. It's what it's going to do. Because look at that sacral right below it. The sacral is pushing up those tantric channels up to the identity and forcing a direction. Do you see that on the right where the red sacral box has those 3 channels going up? Yes, those 3 channels going up, those are our new tantric forces. They're no longer sexual tantric forces. They're identity tantric forces. The tantra we feel now in our kundalini is about the love of ourselves in a direction in communion with the other. That's our genetic way.
Yes.
And those were all keynotes. So the next center down, which you indicated was the solar plex, well, that solar plex gave us, it split too. It split and gave us the wings, the 2 brown centers on the right and the left. Now, I'm certain there was a reorganization that real 7-centered chakra aficionados and professionals will help douse out over time which pieces of which center split off the most. I just use this diagram because it's the one that makes the most pronounced illustration. Our heart did give us our identity. It is separate now. But that solar plex is now starting to become emotional. And it left our spleen, our oldest mammalian awareness, off to the left. It left that brown triangle as intact and now its own center, moment to moment to moment. Savannah has this. You have this, Jen, in your body graph. So you know that moment to moment awareness. Good, not good, no good, not good. Safe,
Yep.
not. And you know that if you ignore it, it doesn't always come back. It's because it speaks softly. It's weak compared to the other 2 awarenesses that have overpowered it. If you're a reptile, it's not weak at all. It's wicked strong. Stay in the sun. It's warm on a rock. I'm a reptile. I'm cold-blooded. The rock's warm. It's good for me. They don't think twice about that. If you're a 5-year-old, it doesn't overpower you if you're a 4 and 5-year-old because you haven't been conditioned all the way yet. You listen to that. I don't like it. It's not good. Oh, it smells bad. I don't like that man. He's bad. That's your spleen. That's the kid's spleen. Listen to it. Let the kid listen to it anyways. Maybe they're a business partner and you got to do business with them, but just get your kid out of their aura. The kid says it's no good. The kid's right. Don't overthink it. Your mental conceptualizing cannot think the truth for that child in that moment. Put your kid in another room. Put earbuds on them and let them sit in the car. Whatever. I'm just using examples, but so this is what we've done. Our 9-centeredness has been born out of our 7-centeredness, and this is why we're in so much trouble. We haven't gotten used to it yet. That old 7-centered being was constantly having small minorities of people trying to be a 9-centered way and be in communion. And they were always overrun. Wasn't the Tibetan temples overrun by the oncoming marauders during Genghis Khan's time? And
I believe so.
Something like there's lots of history of the people that were getting it. 7-centered beings. They came in. They took all their shit. And they're rape the women, steal the children, reorient them, and murder the men, or most of them, enslave them until we can integrate them into our way, and then a generation or two, and then they don't know any better. And the 7-centered way stayed. Lao Tzu, or whatever his name was, he was aware long ago. It's like mind is going to ruin everything, and he was right.
The Art of War.
Probably, I forget what Lao Tzu wrote, but he had this saying that Ra Uru Hu would always reference, that he was aware early on that this mind of ours is going to ruin everything. It's going to think it thinks it knows, and it did, and it led us to the 7-centered way that we lived out for 100,000 years until just 241 years ago. 241 years is not very long to get over that hangover, but with this knowledge and keynoting, we are mutative, Jen. There is no rule against springing this new knowing into awareness. There's no rule that says we can't help wake up the planet. In the early days, Ra said it's one at a time, and that is true. I can really only wake up one at a time, but there's no reason we can't get to groups at a time now if they're willing and they're open. There's no rule that says we can't strike the planet smart. No rule.
True. So, that's exactly what we're doing.
That's exactly what we're doing. So, next slide.
Savannah has a quick question. So, listening to the body and not the mind can get us into troubles.
Period. Yes.
Okay.
It does get us into trouble.
It makes us not follow our design.
Absolutely. This is the last image that I'll need to show you, and I'm not going to stay on here very long. This is just to show you on the left-hand side. These are our basic codon structures that any geneticist will know. And these are the letters we recognize across the top. And notice they're yin and yang lines across the top and yin and yang lines across the left-hand side. So the x-axis on the top and the y-axis down the left-hand side, these are yin and yang, broken and solid, broken and solid, broken and solid, just like our genome. You add these up, and this is exactly how on the right-hand side the hexagram itself works. Notice how the illustration on the lower right, it's that you see that genetic spiral, right? You see that dual structure there. Yes. Well, look at it. It's the 3 parts, the lower and the upper trigram of a hexagram. That's why when we put these hexagrams in our own genetic structure and we order them according to our own genome and we blow them out around a wheel, that's how we're able to follow our genetic path through the wheel. And our genetic path keeps getting sewn up over and over again. And it's through this construct that any geneticist will know, oh yeah, these are our codons. This is what they're doing. And they're in these groupings of ACG, ACC, CTT, TTA, whatever it is. Groupings of 3 stacked on top of each other to make 6. And this makes our 64 hexagrams. Shazam. Okay. Notice this chart ends at 64. This is a genetic table.
Yeah.
This is our genetic table, and it ends at 64, just like the ancient Chinese I Ching set of hexagrams. So those crazy China guys, they were on to something.
Absolutely, they were. Well, China.
Those crazy bastards knew. I love them. Thank you.
I want to say that China was the ones that I believe started the calendar system.
Everything. They started the whole train rolling on all this stuff. Ironically, now they're starting Ironically, now they're taking part in the whole train rolling on stopping it.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Quite ironically,
Awesome.
yeah. So you can get rid of the slides. We can go full screen, and I don't know if there's any further questions, but
Yeah, I was just about to ask that if anybody had any further questions.
anything from you, Chelsea?
Savannah said she loved that last slide. I did too.
Well, I need to tie in the science of it all. I know we went long, and it doesn't matter. This one's too important. I'm going to close with this duality. We have seen it over and over again. Our body gives us a chemistry, and then our strategy and authority knows what to do with it. As this keeps happening in your life, what I want you to notice, and next time we're going to keep pronouncing it more and more, is there is a passenger sits above your head, and there is this G center in the center that is not affected by any of these streams of awareness. It's not affected. It is just love in a direction. Love empowered to move in a direction. That's the identity of humanity now. It's no longer the willful humanity. It's the love in a direction humanity. That's who we are. That's why communion is required, not just cooperation. And what I want you to start witnessing, anybody who can see this, anybody who wants to get read, anybody who wants to call in on the next show, all this stuff is start to witness that every time something happens in your life and you realize you followed your strategy and you started to recognize it, I want you to say to yourself, who's noticing? Who noticed? Who saw that? Because you'll start to find out you have an awareness, this self-reflected consciousness that is literally separate from your body's consciousness. It is witnessing it. We have a witness passenger consciousness that's not supposed to be tied up in mind making decisions. It's got such an affinity to mind because it's up here. And our third eye literally moved from here down to here. Up here is really the third ear now. It's gate 43, which is the gate of the ears. It's the gate of it should be an ear there, that because it's a sound, it's acoustic. We're hearing it. We're still seeing it as something we see. I'm sure there's still some visual third eye stuff that goes on there. But our third eye really moved down. The way the third eye is described in the wisdom of the old way. The third eye has moved down into this sternum G center area where sits the magnetic monopole that keeps us together in this illusion that we're separate. We're not. We're all one. We're all stuck together. And inside of ourselves, you have a passenger consciousness that is literally witnessing what the ride is giving us. The hot atomic package of all these atoms and all this genetic programming is what's driving us around the planet. We're walking around in it, and it's the self-reflected passenger that is aware, that can now be the rest of the way aware that, hey, you've got a partner on the ride. It's your body. Watch what it does. And notice you're something else watching it. It's the watcher. It's watching.
The watchers.
The watcher is watching. And we've had a lot of movies about stuff like that.
I know. That's what, like, I wonder. Because I know from part of my work and part of my channelings and intuitive messages that I have gotten, one of the things that we are to learn how to do is unconditional love. Is to break out of all this programming, all of this crap that people have done to us. And, it's to get out of that repetitive pattern of projecting our insecurities and fears and stuff like that, but to come to a place of forgiveness and having compassion and unconditional love. And that starts with you. And it all starts with your heart and your heart awakening.
It sure does.
Which literally, when you do have a heart awakening, will take you into a deeper understanding of yourself and intuition.
It's all of it. It's all of it. And spoken like a true nine-centered being, Jen.
Thank you, Dan.
250 years ago, they didn't talk like this, man.
No, they did not.
We're talking like this, maybe in the church, maybe somewhere a freak was allowed.
I don't even think these.
But they didn't talk like this. We do, because that's who we are.
Absolutely. Well,
Great.
with that said, I think that we can go ahead and start wrapping up the show.
Let's wrap it, baby.
Ruby, Chelsea, and Savannah, thank you everybody for joining. They all said that this was awesome, very fascinating, eye-opening. Savannah said, didn't Raw say human designs helps us love ourselves and others unconditionally?
Spread the word, guys. Help.
Yes.
Yeah, big front line. Let's make a big fat front line and share this shit out to everyone. No one gets out alive. I'm after those guys at top. I want Bill Gates to get surrounded by us so he can finally not be Bill anymore and be the real Bill.
Absolutely. Break out of their programming,
From
because
their
I am
programming.
pretty sure that they are mind controlled like
Fully.
crazy.
Yep.
So definitely.
Promise you that.
With that said, guys, another impactful episode today. Like Danny said, please make sure to help us get this information out. Like, subscribe, follow to the channel, sign up to our newsletter list. All the links are down below, have been scrolling. Make sure to check us out. If you would like to join us backstage, please make sure to send us a message. We do have backstage passes where you can come on live, just like we were asking and answering the questions today. You have availability to do that. And yeah, just
I think we're done.
I think we're done. Y'all have a beautiful Sunday, and thank you again for joining us.
We killed it.
We did. We
absolutely.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next week.